I'm with David Nekrutman from the Isaiah Project. Now, David, what is the Isaiah Project?
Yeah, it's an organization dedicated to creating Hebraic resources for Christians to discover the roots of their faith. And we take on a few humanitarian projects, including helping out Christian Arabs in Bethlehem to put food on the table, as well as Ethiopian single mothers in Netanya to also have the ability to buy food, so we supply them with supermarket cards.
Now, Israel is at war at the moment. How is the Isaiah Project responding?
So obviously we're in a unique, unprecedented moment in history where the number of people murdered on October 7th, which we would consider our 9/11, was so profound, and the brutality of what took place, that we have no choice but to now act on behalf of helping everyone on the ground here in Israel. And therefore the Isaiah Projects has a network of both Jews and Christians that we can go ahead and pool our resources together to help first responders on the ground, as well as families being affected on the southern border of Israel.
So now we're here at the Eldan Hotel. Tell us about what you're doing here at the Eldan Hotel.
So prior to any government-mandated evacuation, we already saw what was going to happen to the communities living on the southern border. And we adopted a particular community, Moshav Mish'en, which is about 6 miles from the Gaza border. These are families that don't have bomb shelters in their homes, don't have a bomb shelter in the community itself. They're under missile attack every single day from Gaza into Israel. They're basically living in fear of their lives every single day. So we decided to take on this particular community, and that has 1,000 residents, and we brought over 100 people to Jerusalem. We brought them to the Eldan Hotel and also the Jerusalem Gardens Hotel. Because they're in the Eldan Hotel, about 15 families. Next door to us is Jeffrey Mark, and he basically adopted these families as well and decided to pay an extra week for their hotel stay. So we took care of the first week. Jeffrey Mark, along with Jonathan Feldstein from Genesis 123 Foundation. Jeffrey is a friend of Jonathan Feldstein, and they decided to take on the next week, which is where the week that we're talking on right now. In a few days, they are technically supposed to go home on Saturday night. It may be that there will be more monies coming in and we can actually host them for another week. But this is the group that's remaining left from Moshav Mish'an that we evacuated.
How has life been in the Moshav where they were living?
Every single day, again, these are a lot of people are farmers and photographers, independent contractors. For them, everything has been canceled, no work, living in fear, trying to give comfort to their kids. We took only families, and all of a sudden, for the first time after a week, about 9 days into the war, they had a full night's sleep without having a siren going off, without rushing anywhere in fear. And slowly but surely, by providing children's activities, meals, even providing social services for those who've been really traumatized, especially the kids, slowly they're coming back to living normally, that you're not in fear. But again, it was a project that we decided to do prior to any government-mandated evacuation. Like, for example, for Sderot. The mayor of Sderot was begging the prime minister for mandated evacuation, but we knew taking 30,000 residents from Sderot without a proper evacuation plan, with a dysfunctional government who seems not to be handling this situation correctly, the civilians are coming in and taking the reins in charge of helping people on the ground. So right now, people who have been governmentally mandated to leave are finding themselves like every 3 days, where are they supposed to go? As opposed to doing a logical plan, knowing you fully well that you have hotels or you have housing to place these people. So we're not a big organization. We focused on a particular small community and then moved them along, and we're taking care of them.
Did they sort of run from their homes to come here? Do they have things that they don't have?
100%. They don't have things. They had to leave things at home. They were leaving under missile fire. In fact, for the very first time in 20 years, I would say I worked on Shabbat. My first time I worked on Shabbat was working for the Israeli consul in New York, and the Passover bombing that took place during the Second Intifada, I was called into the office on Passover to work to get the message out of what's going on. Also, the second time was when the shuttle exploded. Ilan Ramon was on the shuttle. I was asked to come in. So rarely do I work on Shabbat. I'm an Orthodox Jew. But in this case, in saving lives, we had to put an evacuation plan, including trying to get these families out. But it was so dangerous to leave, we had to wait for a moment where there was a lull in the rocket attacks, come now. And they just rushed into their cars with whatever they had and came here.
So the rocket fire must have been so constant. I live in Bethlehem, and we've had about a few rockets going over, but they're so loud. And this must be really scary for the children.
It's very scary for the children. The children are very traumatized. They're still traumatized, but what we're seeing now, because it's almost 2 weeks that they had a place in Jerusalem without really any rockets going over Jerusalem. In fact, there was a rocket that was in Jerusalem, but they were in the bomb shelter with the children's activity, so they didn't even hear the missile, because that would have been a very traumatic event. But it's less than they would have on where they were living currently in next to the Gaza border. So what you're having right now is what we're seeing is, and again, I want to the credit to all the organizations, both Jewish and Christian. We had Zion's Gate International, Zion's Bridge, Bridges for Peace, Jonathan Feldstein's Genesis 123 Foundation, Jeffrey Mark, all coming together saying we want to help each other out. By pooling our resources together, we can actually do more good than as separate organizations trying to do separate projects. I think that's the beauty and the uniqueness that we were able to do for these particular evacuees, that this is not about me. I just happen to facilitate this with the help of our great team, Sarah Kramer and Janet Kane, who's part of the Isaiah Projects, but also to do this in partnership with others and let them go ahead and show what the beauty of partnership is really about. There's a covenantal bond between Jews and Christians. And I believe, as a person on the Orthodox Jewish side who's been working in this sacred calling for over 23 years, the way to do this is jointly, covenantally. This is what it was intended to be. Two faith communities always working together in mystery.
It's sad that you have to do this, but it must be an exciting time as well, is it?
It's exciting to see the impact on a child's face when they are smiling when we're bringing zoo animals in. That simple little thing of a zoo animal, and they're smiling because that means they're not thinking about what was during this war. That's just is unbelievable. It's because at the end of the day, we've never had them. The amount of Jews murdered in one day never happened in 75 years. The only other time that you had that was during the Holocaust, so in modern day history. So it's the whole country is traumatized. It's easy to be in front of a TV and look at it and be angry of what happened, or do you take charge and start to help? And we decided to take charge and start to help, and we did this in partnership with Jews and Christians.
Is the Gaza border area a farming community, and have you been able to help those farmers as well?
In fact, today, we actually, for the last 2 days, we've started to harvest the tomatoes and cucumbers, and we have the Mevaseret Zion community basically doing a farm-to-table project. So we're taking all the produce, and we're selling in Mevaseret Zion to help another farmer out.
So are they under rocket fire as they're picking the cucumbers and tomatoes?
So at this particular time, the rockets are less. There is a concern always when doing something like this, but it seems like there's a certain time frame when the rockets are being shot from Gaza into Israel. So we're taking advantage of the other hours.
This is stopping them being wasted, isn't it? You don't want to waste all this food.
It's not only wasting the food, it's also, there's an economy at the end of the day. You don't want people all of a sudden lose their livelihood because of what's going on. If there's a unique and smart way of doing this, and it helps out people, that's what you need to do.
Now you've also been up in the north. What have you been doing in the north?
So again, we've been helping first responders both on the southern and northern borders, flashlights, battery chargers, socks, t-shirts, jackets, medical first aid equipments, and so on and so forth. I've been delivering this while Sarah Kramer and Janet Kane on the ground. I've been taking care of the families.
What's it like for you working Jews and Christians together in this?
This is amazing because this is what it's supposed to be. This is the reason why I get up in the morning. It's the miracle of not only living in a miracle called the State of Israel, but working with miracles of Christians who stand with Israel. So I have 2 miracles every single day when I wake up in the morning that I can do this in the land and working with a covenantal bond with my Christian brothers and sisters.
Now you live in Netanya, so has Netanya been under rocket fire because it's on the coast?
Not as much. We had a few, but I would say Sarah Kramer and I, the Isaiah Projects team, we went to Barzilai Hospital and Sderot. So we've been dancing around missiles occasionally when delivering much needed, again, clothing for first responders. There's no stock in Israel. You have to find connections You have to bring it in from the United States and other parts of the world to just help out with over 500,000 people that have been mobilized to defend this country. And 360,000 of them are reservists. And so we're not necessarily prepared to give everything needed for the individual reservist. And that's where we come in.
So do you have family? Do you have children in the army?
My middle son, Ori, is in the Air Force, and his base has been bombarded every single night with rocket attacks. Yeah.
So it must be scary for you as a father knowing that your son is out there.
Yeah. As any parent who has any children in the Army right now, we're all worrying at the same time, a collective worry, with a hope that somehow this will end. And I think the best way for this to end is that Israel needs to go in and take out the Hamas leadership. I don't equate the average Palestinian to Hamas, but Hamas has abused and used their people for, at the end of the day, for propaganda. And there's the average Palestinian living in Gaza who just wants to live peacefully. And that's my hope, that somehow if Hamas is removed properly, that there can be a moment where peace can happen, even with people right now who might not necessarily love me, but understand the necessity to live side by side.
So for the last 3 weeks, your life has been turned upside down. You've been very, very busy.
Extremely busy, because I actually launched something called Biblical Excavations, which is the first ever homeschool Christian Bible curriculum that fuses Hebraic thought with critical thinking skills. And I had to stop everything because of the crisis at this point in time. So I'll come back next month to work on promoting what we're doing for the first time ever for the homeschool Christian community.
Wow. What's your prayer for the evacuees? What's your prayer for the situation?
First prayer is the return of all hostages. That's number one. Number two, protection of all first responders who are protecting us. Number three, the trauma that needs to be overcome right now for a nation, specifically those people who are living on the borders of Israel that have gone through sirens all the time and missile attacks. And lastly, but the most, is the people who have been mourning. I think the moment that hit me the most in the last 2 weeks is delivering mourning tents to these communities on the southern border. And knowing full well we're out of stock, I was able to buy. It's a rotating mourning tent. So in Judaism, we have a 7-day mourning period where we have friends and family to comfort the mourner. A lot of times you have big families, you can't have them in the apartment, so you set up a tent outside the building. And that's the moment you realize of the magnitude of what we're dealing with.
What's your website for people who'd like to give and help put up evacuees in a hotel?
www.theisaiahprojects.com/donate. www.theisaiahprojects.com/donate.
Okay, David, thank you very much.
Blessings.